Hi everyone, my name is Abdul Kader and you're watching Loudmouth off the top rope.
In conjunction with specialized supplements.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages and denominations, I love speaking to the older generation. And when it comes to the older generation, we have to include Mr. Abdul Kader. Mr. Kader, how are you doing, sir?
I'm very well, thank you, Jonathan, and yourself?
I'm doing well, thank you very much, sir. When it comes to professional wrestling, especially from the old school, so we say the old school, um, there was a lot of my wife was mentioning the segregation and things like that, but there was actually a time when Indian wrestlers were exceptionally popular in South Africa. How did you get involved not only in wrestling but in professional wrestling back at that time?
Okay, Jonathan, I think it was the age of 7 or 8 years old. I was doing amateur wrestling
Right.
until the age of 13, 14. Then my late brother-in-law took me to a wrestling show at the City Hall. And there I will never forget this wrestler's name, Bobby Green. I don't know from where he is.
Hmm.
And I watched this match and I got so angry that I wanted to get in and bliksem him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and I fell in love with the sport at that age. I really fell in love with it because I thought to myself, I can add value to this because I was like a mean machine in the amateur game that at the club that I was wrestling at.
Yeah.
And then I was scouting to see where I can get a professional club, and I got a professional club at the age of 15. I
Okay.
joined the professional club, and I was trained by a gentleman by the name of Clarence, and he wrestled under the name Clarence Nature Boy Schoenrad.
Okay. Okay.
And he trained me until the age of, I just turned 17 at that time. And at that time, we had the board of control in operation, and you had to be 18 years old before you could get a wrestling license, and you got to pass out and all those things.
Right.
Then my dad had to sign for any injuries or all those things. They take full responsibility for anything that happens to me in the ring, and they passed me out, and that is how I became a professional wrestler.
All right.
And
Who
that's how my career started.
back then? Who was your first opponent?
My first opponent, I wrestled the South African lightweight champion. His
Okay.
name was the son of Jesse James. It was very new to me. I was so on my nerves. I can still recall, those first moments of your life that you get punished so hard, you don't forget that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and and now I'm up against the South African lightweight champion, and I tell you, it was one. I gave it my all, but I couldn't beat him because that's my first professional fight. I think that time we used to wrestle rounds. I
Yes.
think just by getting into the ring, 3 rounds, I've already wrestled by not even starting the fight. So much stamina was lost of anxiety.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those were the days.
All right. Was the crowd hostile to you at that point in time, being where it was in South Africa's history?
I was very loved in Cape Town, South Africa. In Durban, I was very loved. In Johannesburg. But when it came to Port Elizabeth, that is now called Quebec,
Mhm.
they hated me. The people really hated me in Quebec. I tell you, I had to run for my life when I get out of the ring.
Any particular reason? Did you do anything to offend people
You
or?
know, the reason was they had some very, very much some blue-eyed boys there.
Yeah.
These guys like the Westhuizen brothers. There was Mark Beale, there were some other guys also. They were the provincial superstars of that territory.
Yeah.
So when you come from another territory and you come and take over there, in the sense of you're showing your skills in that, they didn't like that. And they used to hate me. They didn't like that because I used to bliksem those guys.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've seen a picture. I've seen a picture of you wrestling Mark Beale. Now I don't know where it was because I know that you did wrestle him a few times inside the ring. Not only in Port Elizabeth, but around in the Cape as well. How many times did you actually wrestle Mark around South Africa?
I don't have a record, but I can tell you, I wrestled Mark at least 20 times because I had a long career, and moments that I remember of Mark was, I only heard this from Mark after we became very closely united as friends. That he told me, Abdul, when I wrestled you in Durban on the Wembley Stadium, I think it's called the Wembley Tennis Stadium or something to that.
Mm-hmm.
He said to me after that he had to go for a brain scan because I really dropped him on his head.
Wow.
I said to him, Mark, maybe that brought us closer together as friends now,
Yeah.
And, that's how our friendship, that was part of our friendship, but that was way after our wrestling days as professional.
All right. Did that trust in the ring lead to the relationship where you were involved with then WWP, which is now Champions Pro Wrestling? Did that transition from your battles inside the ring just to that friendship and then that partnership inside professional wrestling?
I think I would put it down to another thing that Mark's brother was in the Navy here in Cape Town, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is what I'm speaking about, what Mark has told me.
You're right.
And one night after a tournament, he asked me if I can't take his brother back to the Navy because it's like about 2 hours drive away from me. So I said to him, yeah, it's not a problem. So he wanted to give me petrol money.
Right.
So I said to Marky, life don't go around money, man. Life goes about true friendship. Right. And we have bonded as friends, and it's not about money that I take your brother to the Navy. That is what Mark told me that I told him. I didn't recall that because it was just human nature of me to take him to the Navy.
Sure.
And I dropped him off at the Navy. And Mark said from that moment of time that he really felt that nobody's ever told those words to him,
Yeah.
And that is how we started bonding even stronger and stronger and stronger until we decided one day, look, it's time for us now to take wrestling further because the bigger guys, the Willie Coonies, the Sammy Cohens, the Bull Heffers, stepped down.
Yes.
So that is how we became together.
All right. Now you've had a big part, no, not in front of the camera, obviously, but behind the scenes, you've had a big part in the Wrestle Monster getting to where it has been. You had a big part in Wrestle Monster 1, and I believe Wrestle Monster 2. I wasn't there for Wrestle Monster 2. Are you particularly proud of the fact that you were there at the beginning inception of the Wrestle Monster product that CPW puts out?
Yes, I was very proud of it because I give my life to wrestling. I've given my life to wrestling, my entire life, a career some 47 years in this business.
Right.
And I live for it. Mm-hmm. And to me, you cannot enter a ring by me as Abdul if you are a palooka.
Yes.
You have to be able to do the job. You've got to put your body on the line. And that is my style. And that has been where I stood into the CPW place. That was my place behind the scenes.
Right. Now, you mentioned the fact that you've been a professional wrestler for 47 years, and you mentioned your amateur background and things like that. out of all the people that you've wrestled or that you've seen wrestle, who was the most naturally talented wrestler that you've ever seen?
Jonathan, there's so many talented wrestlers that I have seen. But the very, very best that, in my opinion, that I have seen was a British wrestler that wrestled in South Africa by the name of Tony Sinclair.
Okay.
That was the greatest wrestler that I have seen wrestle. In the era of my time.
Did you happen to share the ring with him at any stage?
No, in those years we were working in different weight divisions.
Right.
So he was in the light heavyweight to heavyweight division.
Okay. But if you could, if they did away with the weight division and things like that, is that the one opponent that you would have loved to have faced?
Yes, of course. Because you'd have really taken me to try to get the best out of me, because he was a machine.
Yeah.
He was a wrestling machine in the days. So it has been possibly a learning curve for me. Possibly I could have beaten him. I wouldn't know.
Okay. Obviously, you would have bet on yourself to beat him.
Jonathan, I always bet on myself.
No, there we go. Do you happen to watch any professional wrestling now on TV? I mean, there's a huge exposure to professional wrestling now that there wasn't there before. So you watch professional wrestling?
Yes, of course.
All right. What do you like and dislike about what is going on in professional wrestling nowadays?
I think there's too much showmanship in it.
Mm-hmm.
I personally think there's too much showmanship in it, and too little of the impact.
Right.
Because the matches, if you look at the matches, if you identify the match itself, it comes down to about 6 minutes, 8 minutes. Here and there you get a 10, 15-minute match when the guys is now angry with each other and they stretch, they try to win the match and all those things. But there's nothing wrong with the showmanship, but it is just a bit too much. And everybody is now trying to be this person on the mic, and the mic is not for everybody.
Yeah.
That is my opinion. I mean, I could have taken the mic many years ago, but I'm not a mic person. So don't make a fool of yourself by going and do something you see someone else does and you can't even do it right.
Sure.
That's my opinion.
Did they ever want you to be the mic guy, or were you fine just being, I'm Abdul, I'm a professional wrestler, I don't talk on the mic, leave that for other days?
In our days, that was not permissible in our days. You got a board of control sitting there in front of you to watch your match and see if anything's out of line and that, and you do your wrestling, and from there you get out of the ring and you go back to the dressing room. We didn't have what there is now, that the wrestler uses the mic and they talk whatever they want to speak about or what. That wasn't then in those days. You wrestle 6 rounds, 8 rounds, or anything of that nature.
Right. What was the longest match you ever had? You talk about 6.
Well, the longest match was 6 rounds. 6 rounds, and sometimes you wrestle for 6 rounds with no falls in between it, and it's tiring. It's very draining. But let me tell you something. The era of time, if you watch the wrestling of yesteryear, and you see what is happening today.
Yeah.
The speed of the wrestler is much faster today. Mm-hmm. Because in those years we used to wrestle very much like the British style of wrestling, right. A grip for grip type of situation, And today it's more. I can say it in Afrikaans, schietskop and donder.
Yeah.
You go in there, you beat the hell out of somebody, and you get up.
Does that lose a bit of translation? Because I've heard some of the older guys complaining that because it's that instant gratification of wrestling, it's boom boom boom, that the fact that the guys aren't telling the story between the beat points is losing the crux of what professional wrestling was, and that was storytelling. You think that's a major thing that's been lost now as well, because because the moves are just coming at you so quickly. The art of the storytelling with your body's been lost.
There's nothing behind it now. There's nothing behind it now. You just go in and you're in there 6 minutes, 7 minutes, and you're out, and it goes so fast. To me, there's hardly time for punishment because you're going through it so quickly.
Yeah.
But that is my opinion. Many people might differ with me.
Yeah. Well, it's a fine line, because a lot of people saying that's what professional wrestling nowadays is missing. A lot of the newer guys are saying, well, we don't want to see that. We want to see the guys. We want to see a guy the size of Keith Lee or Jeff Cobb, and they diving over the top rope and they're doing flips and things like that. That's what some of the youngsters have grown up with. That's what they want to see. So it's a really fine line between the two. How are you going to get this across?
I really go with it. There was a gentleman by the name of Paul Lloyd.
Yeah.
He was a great guy. Paul Lloyd was a great wrestler in his stage. He had his first match against me. And Paul Lloyd became one of the greatest promoters in the era of time. And he forced us to move over to the non-stop wrestling first fall winner issue. And I was very reluctant to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, wrestling changed because television brought in the American style of wrestling and people got attached to it.
Yeah.
And if you don't switch over, you don't get the crowd.
Right.
So we had to go back to school now and learn the American style of wrestling as what you see basically worldwide today. And everybody loves it. And that's how it is. And at the end of the day, you got to do what you got to do.
Right.
And
I get the point. I get the point that you're making. In all the time that you've wrestled in your 47 year career, how many matches?
my career wasn't 47 years in the ring, eh? My career was like...
Oh, was it all together? Beg your pardon.
Yes. I can never spend 47 years in the ring.
I don't know. You still look pretty young.
Yes, but I don't want to make a fool of myself, Donovan.
No.
I don't want to think I'm going to go into the ring and... No, I can't make a fool of myself, and I'm too proud of wrestling to go disgrace wrestling. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know what you
I
mean.
can't go on forever because I want to be... You know when you must stop, but some people don't want to stop.
Yeah.
And I said, no, enough is enough.
No.
At the age of 42, 43, I stopped.
Okay.
And that was also too much.
All right. How many matches did you have in your career?
Oh, I can tell you hundreds upon hundreds of matches. That was a long career. Some days you got to go wrestle 3 times. And by the 3rd fight, your bones is already tired already.
Yeah.
But you got to do your job and you got to carry on.
Fair enough. Who out of all those matches, who was your opponent that brought out the best in you, no matter how many times you wrestled them or where you wrestled them? They just you always knew you were going to have a good match, irrespective of what type of match it is, if you were doing rounds or if you were doing a loop or anything like that.
If you're speaking about brilliant matches that I had, I think this guy is still around today. I know he's still alive today. I don't know if he's still wrestling today.
Yeah.
He's a great guy, Tervor van der Westhuizen.
Blacksmith.
We had some of the best matches ever. Some of the best matches that I will treasure for many, many years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. If let me put it this way. If something happened to you now and you had to take one wrestler in his prime to wrestle for your life, who would it be?
That you're actually putting me on the spot, because wrestlers used to protect one another at all times. You know, there's sometimes that you go to a place where you wrestle and then everybody wants to torpedo you because they hate you, and the wrestlers who's come around, everybody's protection in those years. Okay, now it might be different, but in those years it was like that. Right. And it's difficult. It's very difficult for what you are asking me. But I will say, whew, wow, man. I will have to say Tervor van der Westhuizen. I mean, there's so many others, and I have respect for each and every one of them. But he is a very good guy.
Right.
To me.
Right. So okay, so he would be the one wrestler that you would say, okay, you know, I'd choose that.
I know
guy to
you'll
wrestle.
cover my back.
Yeah, there we go. Where do you see South African wrestling progressing in the next 5 years?
You know, Donovan, it's been a tough 2 years, almost 2 years now with the COVID. Mm-hmm. Worldwide, nothing has really happened. Everybody went to the doldrums financially, emotionally. You live with stress all day. You're trying to do something, and then the government comes and they put a ban on certain things. It's only now that it's opening in our country that you can at least have 2,000 people in the outdoors. But the people is still reluctant to support any outdoor sport if it's, you know what I mean? Because they still say that they might catch the virus unless it's like a stadium that got 50,000 people and they only allow 2,000 and you can sit a mile away from the other person. Yeah. But thinking of what CPW has in mind for the next, I wouldn't even go 5 years, I would go for the next 2 years. Yeah. It's very exciting. You know, it's very exciting. And should these things come off, then the wrestling will grow and grow and grow back to the days it was. Yeah, yeah. That is what I have now noticed and I have seen, and that is what I think it's going to be. All right. And I take it you'd still like to be a part of the journey as long as you can be. I can't think. You know, I took a break for a couple of years and I said to myself, no, man, I miss the sport too much. And I got involved again, you know, and I said, hell, man, I can't stay. Maybe I'll go to the grave one day and then it will be over. But before then, I can't see myself not being part of it. That's it. That's it. Abdul, what advice would you give a youngster that's trying to break into the business in South Africa now? What advice would you give him? Is that as a wrestler or as what? Let's say let's go as a wrestler, and then as a promoter, and then as a father. Okay, let me tell you, the very first thing is get yourself a proper coach. Yeah. Don't get coached by somebody that got 6 months experience of wrestling, because it is limited to knowledge in this business. Yeah. You've got to get you somebody, and in South Africa, there's a couple of very, very good coaches that can teach you professional wrestling. Go to them and get proper knowledge, and they will put you through the school that you know you come out of school that you can be proud of. I always say when I coach people, I say, go to the world, and if they ask you who taught you, you say Abdul Kader taught you. Mm-hmm. Be proud that I can be proud to say I taught him to wrestle. That is my opinion, that you have to have a coach that has wrestling at heart. Yes. You know, don't think of yourself as I will teach you to a certain limit, but not further than that because I got to look after myself. It doesn't work like that in coaching. Right. Coaching is giving the student the best of the best, and that they can learn to do the thing correctly. And then put them on small road shows so that they can gain a little bit of experience before you bring them to the bigger shows. Right. Okay. That's so that is the advice as getting them into the business. Yes. Now yes. Now your promoter hat is on. What advice would you give them there? Let me tell you, Donovan. This is not an easy game to be in. Firstly, you work with a lot of different personalities. Every time you have a different show, you have different personalities. It's very tough to work with him. I have been a promoter where I say, I don't tolerate those things. We came here, we're going to put up a show and we're going to go home decently. Don't give me hassles, because there's so much hassles that you got to do before a show and that. I wouldn't advise anybody to think that they're going to make big money in wrestling. Forget about that. That you must forget about.
Sure.
Maybe the very, very big boys make big money. But we put up the wrestling show so that because we love the game, we enjoy the game and that. So really, people mustn't say, but why are you doing it? I'm warning you not to do it, because I'm deep into it already.
Yes.
Yes. Be 100% sure you know what you're going to do, because it's not the easy business to be in.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not the easy.
Right.
So I'm being frank, honest, and sincere when I say those words. But those that want to try, I can't stop you. They must go and try it. But I can say, I have warned you. It's not easy.
Now, as a father, I come to you and I say, Dad, I want to be a professional wrestler. What advice would you give?
If you got the guts, because this become a professional wrestler is a mad thing. It's a really madness to become a professional wrestler. I always look back and say, well, I really doing this thing. It's crazy to put your body on the line like that. It's really crazy. If you prepare to do it, and you can take the bumps and the knocks and the pain and the whatever, because it's all about pain.
Yeah.
Then it's fine. Go for it. Right. Go for it.
Would you then train your son, or if your daughters want to get involved or anything like that, would you train them personally?
Well,
or would you
I can send you video clips of my son. Right, he wrestles professionally.
Yeah.
Because there again, when you coach somebody, you've got to coach them with the best foot forward. And he has had some brilliant fights, not because it's my son, because it's a fact.
Yeah.
But he said to me, Dad, man, I have other aspirations in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to him, look, you have been here. I would like you to stay on, but I can't force you to,
Sure.
And then he stopped wrestling. I had one of the greatest masked wrestlers that I trained also in South Africa by the name of Super Kid.
Yes.
He came to me after a good couple of years and he said to me, he needs to stop because his wife is complaining he's got too much injury. I said, listen, brother, I've done my job. That is now entirely up to you. So you put all that effort into people and then they come like that. Because when you go into the professional ring, and now you have opponent now it's different to the training. Now it's a completely different ball game. Sure. Training is okay. Even though training is hard, it's okay. But when you go in front of the public and you see you got the opponent in the ring, it's not always okay.
Yeah, yeah. Mark Tyson said, everybody's always got a plan until you get hit in the face.
Yes, there you are. You don't know what is coming your way in the ring. You don't know what is coming your way. I remember days that I used in my early days of wrestling, I used to bloody cry in the ring. Because I wasn't even taught that is happening to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And back in the days, the guys were old school. If you were a younger kid, boy, they not take advantage per se, but they would stretch you out.
Oh, I tell you, Jonathan, some of the guys that wrestled me can make remarks about me because they always used to have some, I'm not saying all, they always used to say it's very tough to wrestle against me. I have people that I can say of my toughest fights was A, B, C, D. You know what I mean? They used to give me a run for my money. That was hard. I remember, when you hear, because that's the time they just put the advert in the paper, you're wrestling this one and that one. You see the name, you say to yourself, wow, this is tough tonight. This is tough tonight, I'm speaking about wrestlers like Boerboel. I wrestled many a times, one of the very tough guys. Spider Nell was one of them. There was a guy from Bloemfontein, I can't remember his name. There was another guy, Chickle Swat. Those guys gave me a really, really hard time. But you got to take it like a man.
Of course.
It's a man's game. It's a man's game, this.
Yeah. Was it a respect thing afterwards? That they say, okay, you know, we gave you, you know, we gave you the business, so to speak, and you took it. You know, we respect you as a brother in professional wrestling.
In some cases, the guy don't even worry with it. You know, it just moves on and goes. You know, you see him in the ring and then you don't see him again.
Yeah, sure, sure. All right, Abdul, I'm not going to take up too much of your time. I want to thank you very much for being on the show. There's a lot more that we can get into, but you know, maybe perhaps a face-to-face would be better, to get into the finer details of professional wrestling and especially your career. But I want to thank you very much for your time on the show. We really do appreciate the old school wrestlers, and we appreciate you giving us your time.
Jonathan, thank you for allowing me the moments to speak to you. And I hope whoever watches this enjoys my conversation. And if I did say anything out of line, please forgive me for if I think
that's fine. If people get their nose out of joint there, it's their problem, not yours. You don't need to worry about it. And then I hope we get to be face to face soon, because you know there's a lot more to talk about. There's a lot of things that we just glanced over. Yeah. So until that time, Abdul, thank you very much for being on the show.
You keep well, my friend.
All right. Loudmouth presents Off the Top Rope, uncensored, uncut, and respecting the older generation.